Howdy, howdy. Welcome to Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Yes, it's another baseball podcast where we talk about baseball like a few friends sitting at the bar.
Awesome!
Your input means a lot to us, so please feel free to share your comments. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to tell your friends about it. This is our 14th episode on Mo's World, the baseball podcast, and I want to extend a big thank you to all our returning listeners for your continued support. For those of you who are new here, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy the show. On this week's episode, let's take a look at a certain situation you may not be familiar with. Remember the name Noah Syndergaard? So, what can Noah Syndergaard do to resurrect his career? Does he have options? Let's get a bit deep on the options players have when being forced to retire. Noah Syndergaard, for those who do not know him, was a star pitcher for the New York Mets. He made his debut in 2015 at 22 with the Mets and immediately made an impact to their rotation. His early years produced inconsistent but exciting results. He missed the entire 2020 season due to Tommy John surgery, but the Mets anticipated Syndergaard returning at full strength. But he only pitched 2 games in 2021. And then he became a free agent. After a 6-year career of 47 wins, 31 losses, and a .332 ERA, the Mets decided not to pursue him. Syndergaard then signed a huge contract with the Los Angeles Angels for $21 million, a 1-year contract. After struggling with the Angels, Syndergaard was dealt to the Philadelphia Phillies in August of 2022. He produced more inconsistent results as his velocity was drastically reduced from his average of 97 to 98 to now 92, 93, even being moved to the bullpen in Philly. The offseason saw Syndergaard sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers for $13 million 1-year contract. Syndergaard had hoped that maybe the Dodger Blue Magic would be available to enhance his career. That hope was squashed early in 2023 as Syndergaard showed no signs of improving his velocity. He went 1-4 with a ugly 7.16 ERA with the Dodgers in 12 games started. Then he was dealt to the Cleveland Guardians in July of 2023. He was pitiful with the Guardians, going 1-2 with a 5.40 ERA in 6 games before getting released on August 30th, 2023. No teams picked him up, and at that point of the season, he had to hope to sign with a new team in 2024. So, what does a player do who feels it's not his time to retire? Does he have options? Syndergaard was only 30 years old when released by the Guardians, who desperately needed pitching at that time. As 2024 approached, what options did Syndergaard have to try to continue his career? Syndergaard is represented by CAA Sports, by the way, in case you were wondering about that Burroughs character. So what did they have up their sleeves? It's no telling. It has not been really advertised on what CAA Sports had up their sleeves, if anything. So as the 2024 spring training came around the corner, the rumor of a Syndergaard signing was still a hot topic. There was talk of signing with the Minnesota Twins at the beginning of the season, as the Twins were struggling with their rotation to start the season. But that was only talk. Is that it? What was Syndergaard looking for? Did teams shy away from taking a flyer on him due to contract demands? After making $13 million the previous season and then getting released, did he really have a choice? You have to wonder why another team did not at least inquire about his services. Maybe they did, and we just heard nothing of it. Maybe he thought it had to happen. He had to get signed. Well, once May hit and Syndergaard was still unsigned, I thought, uh-oh, this is it. He's in trouble. Teams are not adding a player like him now. Perhaps if he continues working out and throwing this summer, he can still be an addition to help a staff. That would be his best case scenario, but that too never happened as the summer months came and went. As now we're approaching September, and Syndergaard's pursuit of re-signing with a 2024 Major League team, that's basically over. I mean, is he done? Done at 32? This is where the athlete has to put aside his ego and desires for money and make a decision. Do you really want to play in 2025? Well, he better ask himself that, because how does he market himself to 30 Major League Baseball teams who basically ignored signing him in 2024? If we slide the scenario forward to this coming offseason, January 2025, what is he going to do? At this point, Syndergaard's only choice would be to have an open throwing session, inviting all 30 Major League Baseball teams, perhaps to a local spot in his hometown state of Texas. I really don't know what happened to Syndergaard, why he never recovered like others, but everyone's different. I do believe his pursuit of throwing 100 miles per hour with the Mets by bulking up and creating bulky, not long muscles was his downfall. And I find it incredible that no one stopped him from doing that. I mean, can he retrain his muscles? A long-time technique to improve overall velocity was always long tossing. It's the style of having a catch from 150 plus feet and improving the distance and limiting the arc of throws you throw. Another idea was always throwing a weighted ball. I don't know. Just go back to what works in old school and forget about this high-tech bullshit that's out there sometimes. It didn't work for him, so he needs to do something. His aspirations in reality would be to impress some team at one of these throwing sessions and pick him up for 2025. He should be looking for a minor league contract with a major league spring training invite to camp. Money should be just league minimum, and that would eliminate the aspect of money in this issue. Next is the stipulation of getting his release granted if not on the opening day roster. At least this way would enable him to hook up with another team right away. Did you know that teams sign players to minor league and major league contracts all the time? Do you know the difference? I bring this up because as my friends were discussing Syndergaard's situation recently, a couple of them were unaware that you need to invite a player to a major league spring training camp. Yep. The Major League Baseball team invites players to camp. Either they are on the roster, minor league prospects invited for exposure and the benefit of checking them out, or a non-roster invitee. Syndergaard would be a non-roster invitee. He should be open to becoming a bullpen candidate too. I think he would make an excellent candidate for that 5 to 7 inning slot, becoming a reliever. He just needs to pitch better and get on a friggin' team. It should be interesting to see how this pans out. Now, let's take a look at a topic that pretty much twists me, and that is the competitive balance tax. Have you heard of that one? There's so many different damn friggin' taxes and ways to distribute and change money in baseball. So this is one of them that pretty much annoys every owner, I would imagine. Each year, clubs that exceed a predetermined payroll threshold are subject to a competitive balance tax, which is commonly referred to as the luxury tax. Those who can carry payrolls above that threshold are taxed on each dollar above the threshold, with the tax rate increasing based on the number of consecutive years that club has exceeded it. So, a team's competitive balance tax is figured by determining using the average annual value of each player's contract on the 40-man roster, any player benefits as well, and then every team's final competitive balance tax is figured at the end of the season. So lately in the 2022 collective bargaining agreement, it started out as $230 million level, then it went to 233, 237, 241, 244. So the number will be, in this coming season, $241 million. This current season, it's $231 million. So a club that exceeds the competitive balance tax threshold is subject to an increasing tax rate, and it all depends on how many years in a row they've been over. The first year, it's 20% tax on all overages. Second year, it's 30%. And third year, it's 50% you're taxed over the limit. Now, if a club dips below the luxury tax, and that's what a lot of clubs play with, especially teams that are going over all the time, you hear them say, oh, we're going to reset. Well, the penalty level is reset as well. So if the Red Sox went over 2 years in a row, and then they dipped to be under it, then they went over the following year, it would reset to 20%. But there's also a surcharge for clubs that exceed the base threshold by $20 million or more. $20 to $40 million over is a 12% surcharge. $40 to $60 million over is a 42.5% surcharge, and $60 million or more over, otherwise known as the Steve Cohen tax. So clubs that are $40 million or above the threshold still have their highest selection in the Rule 4 draft moved back 10 places. That's another thing too. You know, they screw with the draft choices. So wow, we're talking a lot of money here. That means the Mets are in their third season in a row over the CBT limit. So they will pay the maximum penalty of an estimated $76 million. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they aren't far behind with a CBT payroll of $321.3 million. Even though Shohei Ohtani will only earn $2 million this year because of his heavily deferred $700 million contract, his CBT hit will be almost $46.1 million. Like the Mets, the Dodgers have been over the limit for the last 3 years, so they will pay the maximum amount, an estimated $68.1 million. Now, the Yankees are the final team over the Steve Cohen tax line with a $306.7 million payroll. They're also a third-time payer, so they'll be penalized $50.6 million. Now, if you're 40 to 60 million over the CBT threshold, that next payroll is in the 277 to 297 range. But there's no teams in that range right now, so woohoo, nobody gets taxed there. Now, the 20 to 40 million over the CBT threshold, that's the next highest payroll. That one runs about $257 million to $277 million range. These teams will pay an extra 12% on every dollar above $257 million. Now, the fourth highest payroll belongs to the Atlanta Braves, who have a CBT hit of $265.3 million. They exceeded the threshold for the first time last season, so they owe $9.5 million as a second-time payer. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies have a lower CBT salary than the Atlanta Braves at $260.8 million, but it's their third straight year of the penalty, so they pay a higher rate, and they'll be assessed a tax of $12.4 million. Now, the Houston Astros are only 257 million line. They're over that by 1.8 million. It's their first time going over that limit, and they can be thankful for trading for Justin Verlander's $43.3 million salary last year that projected that penalty of $4.4 million. And how'd that work out for you, right? What a waste that was. Now, less than $20 million over the CBT, there's only two clubs in this category. The Toronto Blue Jays are a second-time payer with a CBT payroll of $250 million. So they're looking at a penalty of $3.9 million. And then the reigning champ, the Texas Rangers, are pretty much in the same position as the Astros, having wasted $43.3 million on Max Scherzer from last year, and that gave them a CBT payroll of $243.9 million. So they're going to be penalized $2.1 million this year. Now, other clubs could enter this tier if they give out big contracts to remaining free agents, or maybe on the other hand, the Rangers are close enough to the limbo stick that they can make a trade to get under. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2025. But where does this money go? This is a lot of money, right? Well, the first $3.5 million goes directly to player benefits, and half of the remaining sum is then used to fund contributions to Major League Baseball Players Association's individual retirement accounts. If you thought that you had a good retirement account, holy shit. All you need to do is get that magic 10-year number from MLB, and you're in like shit, man. I'm telling you. The other half of the remaining sum is then distributed by the commissioners to payee clubs that have grown their non-media local revenue over a multi-year period. That's a lot of bullshit right there, but basically a plan where the owners are... This is what's really needed. This is why teams get pissed off and owners get pissed off by putting all this multi-millions of dollars to other teams. A plan where the owners are held responsible in improving their teams and using the CBT money to improve rosters is what is needed. This would be the suggestion to improve current distributions. If you are receiving CBT 3 years in a row, you must show a significant increase in payroll spending equaling 80% of that money. This would show a responsibility to the ownership in improving the product on the field. Period. There's no hiding it into, oh, we used it for tax, and we used it for ticket incentives, we used it for programs for our fans. Bullshit. Whatever money you received, 80% of it has to go to the roster to improve it. That's the way it should be. Now, it'll be an interesting and touchy subject on the next collective bargaining agreement, because with the diminished revenue from RSNs and the owner's desire to limit the competitive balance tax, get ready for some disturbing negotiations in 2026. Well, I think that's it. I had some fun talking about Noah Syndergaard as an example of how a player can possibly resurrect a career, and also the competitive balance tax, which is a bugaboo. So I hope you enjoyed our 14th episode of Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Remember, we release new episodes every Friday, each about 20 minutes long. Thank you for listening, and please spread the word to your friends. Next week's episode, undecided once again. I'm struggling over deciding which episode I slide to, so forgive me on that if you like to know ahead of time, but I'm going to keep you as a secret right now. So, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.